Tarr for another episode of the Cozy Corner of Cinema. This is episode number 196, being recorded on January 6th, 2026. That's a bad omen right there, all these sixes. It's the new year. I hope you all had a wonderful new year, a wonderful holiday. I hope you all have gotten that new year mentality in to go ahead for the next 12 months and really pursue what you want to pursue. Work on your art, work on that screenplay you've been putting off, or that novel you want to write, or that instrument you want to learn, or that film you want, whatever it is, man. Whatever you want it is, new year, new opportunities. I say it every year, but it's great. You know, I'm not a New Year's resolution kind of guy. I'm definitely of the mentality of kind of keeping the work going. But it's all about having a mentality. Everybody talks about, oh, new year, new resolutions. I'm gonna diet more. I'm gonna go to the gym more. I'm gonna, start working on this project I wanted to work on. I want to do this, I want to do that. But it's sort of like, just go ahead and do it, no matter what time of the year it is. But still, you have that mentality. We'll go forward with it. We'll have a good time. And yeah, so I'm still wrapping up the 2025 films. I think I have like four more to watch. There was a couple that I just wasn't able to access, and then there were some that were just giving me difficulty. That's a whole other conversation trying to watch those. Either the subtitles weren't working, or like in one case, I was about an hour into the film, and then the subtitles started to be delayed. And I tried to fix it and it wasn't working, so I had to ultimately kind of bite the bullet on that because it wasn't available elsewhere. So at the time now, I had started a film before I'd recorded this, so I am about 20 minutes into that. I had to pause this to, get this done. And then I have three other films after that, and then I think I'll be good in the 2025 list. And I'll do a quick kind of run through, and that's all done. And this is no means like a definitive sort of, list or anything like that. This is just that, it's the end of the year. Wanted to wrap up everything that was on my radar that I wanted to see that got brought up. Some titles I just haven't been able to see, like I said before. And then there's some, that I won't be able to see till later this year, or, are just right now currently unavailable to me that I'll have to kind of count for 2026. Not that it really ultimately matters, but there were a couple films I saw people were really kind of digging, like Resurrection by Gan. That's just unavailable to me at the moment. I know it's playing in some cinemas in the United States, but it is unavailable to me. But I'm looking forward to seeing it when the opportunity arises, and we'll see how that is. So, but yeah, no. So 2025 is in the rear view. New goals, new missions or I should say not new goals, new missions, because we're kind of just keeping the work going on, but a new kind of headspace to keep on going through. It's the start of the year. What do we want to achieve by the end of the year? Whether it be to complete our work, to continue on our work, whatever that may be. Ultimately, you have to kind of figure that out on your own and see what kind of goals you want to set for yourself, whether artistically or individually, whatever that is, man. That's ultimately up for you to decide. But it's great opportunities. People kind of talking about the things they want to achieve, what they want to go for, how often they actually go for that or not. I mean, it's all about really following through with your resolutions. If you're saying that you want to do X, Y, and Z, but then by, the third week of January or by February, by March, you're kind of losing interest in it, then, it's one thing to kind of beat yourself up, but it's another thing to kind of really just have that mentality of just like, man, just got to keep on going, because the results are going to show themselves, man. It's sort of like by the end of the year, you're going to want to look back and be like, man, at the start of the year, I said I was going to do this, and did I do this? Did I not? And that's for you to find out. So, but yeah, no, like I said before, Happy New Year, it's 2026. A lot of films to look forward to. A lot of January films to look forward to. That's another thing too. Is at the time of this recording, there's a decent amount of films coming out this month. Looking forward to. I got 28 Years Later on the mind. I got the sequel, The Bone Temple, coming out next week at the time of this recording. So looking forward to seeing that. I mentioned before how much of a fan I was of 28 Years Later. I think it's a terrific film. One of the most interesting horror films of the last couple of years. And I try not to follow really kind of any sort of buzz or anything like that. I want to go in without any kind of expectation, but I have heard through some tricklings that this new one's getting pretty good reactions. So that will be watched when available. I am looking forward to that. We'll see. I saw today, opened up my phone and read that filmmaker Bela Tarr has passed away. Hungarian filmmaker who I've talked about a handful of times in the show. I've mentioned it's no secret how much of a fan I am of his work. I think his work is incredibly mature it is incredibly cold. When I say cold, I mean that in a positive way, both in the literal and the figurative sense. Cold in the way where there's oftentimes a distance between the audience and the characters in these films. Bela Tarr is one of these filmmakers, like a lot, who is not concerned or interested in whether the audience is along or not. He's not making these films for the audience in mind. And that doesn't mean automatically like it's a slow film, just because of when I say that, because I think of filmmakers like him or like Pick Pond Pharmaceutical. I said that I mispronounced that last name. What's that last name again? Doesn't matter. But the Veracutical. I'm sorry, I think that's what I said. But these are filmmakers. Yeah, they make very slow films, but they're also. It's not even just that. Just they're not interested in what the audience, is like. Man, they gotta have something going on. Have something going on. It's about the mood, for the atmosphere, about the isolation. You feel the distance between these characters, but you still get a real understanding of them. And in a lot of cases, sort of the camaraderie of a lot of these people around, and sort of having this. They're all kind of on the same wavelength of like lifestyles of this sort of a nihilistic look. Maybe not even entirely nihilistic, because I don't think his films are entirely nihilistic, but they are definitely sort of downtrodden, so to speak. But let me get some of this coffee here. Excuse me. But yeah, excellent filmmaker, known for works, of course, like Satan Tango, Werkmeister Harmonies, The Man from London, The Turin Horse, The Outsider. His first film, Family Nest, I believe, is actually on the release of Werkmeister Harmonies from 1979, so that'll have to be watched in due time. I think he's a brilliant filmmaker. He's one of my very, very favorite filmmakers. It was all about quality. I mean, yeah, quality, not quantity. His last feature film was in 2011 with The Turin Horse. He made a short film in 2017, and he made a documentary in 2019. I haven't seen those, but Turin Horse I think, is a really incredible film, and I don't know if I talked about it on the show or not, but the documentary entitled Bela Tarr, I Used to Be a Filmmaker, all about the making of The Turin Horse. And it's great to watch that, especially having I had never previously looked at any kind of behind the scenes stuff with any of his films, because his films have such a very specific kind of feel and look to them. It's not even just that they're in black and white, but it's a very I've heard the term apocalyptic used, and I guess you could say that in terms of just the isolation of it all. But yeah, these films, even in something like Werkmeister Harmonies, where you are in this town with a lot of other people, it still feels so cold and it feels so distant from everyone else, almost kind of like otherworldly in a way. I talked about Werkmeister Harmonies when I seen it theatrically a year or two ago. Actually, gosh, 2026 now, it had to be 2 years ago. So you can hear me talk more about that film, and that was more fresh in the mind. I mean, Satan Tango, I think, was actually may have been the first film I talked about on the show. I really have no idea. It was that or The Seventh Continent. Oh, Michael Haneke. One of the two, but I just, and I don't know if I talked about the documentary or not. I may have not even talked about The Turin Horse, admittedly. I think The Turin Horse is probably maybe one of his more well-known films. Maybe more so than something like Satan Tango, which I think is probably known, but maybe the runtime is a little daunting for people. But it's one of those. It's just such a rewarding watch, such a brilliant film. That's just one of my very, very favorite films. That's a film that just had a big impact on me. And I should also say that he had co-directed, his wife, I should say, Agnes Haransky, co-directed a couple of those films with him, which was Werkmeister Harmonies, The Man from London, and The Turin Horse, which I don't know if I've seen The Man from London. Gosh, I gotta think about if I have seen that or not. But if not, well, that'll be rewatched anyways. If I have seen it, it'll be rewatched. If I haven't seen it, then it will be watched. Yeah, real tragedy, one of a kind filmmaker, truly just a films for how do I put it? A film for a very discerning audience. These are the films if possible, to see theatrically. I've only seen Werkmeister Harmonies theatrically. Others I've seen at home. But these are films, you watch them when it's cold out. You're not sitting there waiting for a traditional narrative. You're very much in the mood and the feeling of the film, while still not negating any kind of character stuff in there. They're not just mood pieces; they are, character films as well. And especially the environment around them, kind of how that shapes these people in these films. You have that great sequence in Werkmeister Harmonies when they're going through the hospital, kind of breaking everything, and there's like this sudden sort of a moment of truth at the end of it all that really kind of puts the whole sequence into perspective and really kind of puts a more dour mood on it. He's just a brilliant filmmaker, and it was a real loss to hear about that. We got to live to share the spread the word, share his films with with people who are going to appreciate them. People who are really going to see whether or not they like or dislike the films. It's a prerogative, but see what he's going for. You're not going to recommend Joe Schmo some of these films. You're gonna and even if you like even if you like a certain kind of films, it's not guaranteed. But these very slow, very specific mood films are just wonderful, man. These shows are always in the conversation, and it was just a real loss or a real shame to hear about this loss. So we thank you, Bela Tarr, for all of the wonderful films you've given us, all of the wonderful experiences that have led to myriad discussions, analysis, even the soundtracks to these films. I forget who the composer is to some of these films, but if you go online, there's a good compilation of some of the soundtracks to stuff like Satan Tango and Bergmeister Harmonies and a couple other films in there. I don't remember which ones were actually on the list, but worth looking at for sure. Those are great winter kind of soundtracks. I don't even know. I don't know what instruments those are. I'm terrible with recognizing what an instrument is. Outside of like a basic like guitar or drums, anything like that. We got that main kind of music piece in Satan Tango, and I don't know what instrument that is, but it's just so I kind of I use a similar sort of thing for the intro of this show. I don't know what instrument that is either. Obviously, I didn't make the music. That's a public domain thing I found. I thought it fit for the show. But that the intro music there was directly inspired by what that sounds like in those films. So yeah, we raise our glasses to you, Bela Tarr. Thank you for all of the wonderful films, and we will continue to live on in your memory and cherish your legacy that you have left behind. So yeah, man, really awesome stuff there. Rest in peace to Bela Tarr, one of a kind for sure. I think it's one thing to kind of make a slow art film, but it's another thing to make a slow art film with a lot of substance in there. It's very subdued, very subtle, very much for like I said, for a certain kind of audience that's going to appreciate it. So yeah, thank you for all of your films. But like I said, yeah, I was going on with the 2025 films, and I got a couple more to wrap up with. And then as well, the 2026 films have basically already started. I had seen 2 films theatrically this year, and there are 4 more that will be available to see this weekend. So that will definitely be taken care of when the time comes, and so on. So hopefully we get some good stuff this year. I don't really keep up with any kind of calendar for like big release or something like that. 'Cause I end up seeing like a lot of films that I never heard before kind of just pop up rather than looking forward to like the next sequel or the next kind of remake or property whatever like that. Because those are all like those are listed. It's like a X amount of months we're gonna get this superhero movie, and X amount of months we'll get this sequel or anything like that. So I really have no expectations going on to the year. I know. I mean, there's a couple films that are coming out that I'm looking forward to watching. Alpha, the new film by Julie Ducanu. I don't know if I said that right. I didn't look it up. Looking forward to watching that. Director of Raw and Titan. The Sound of Falling. I almost mixed up History of Sound and Sound of Falling. Sound of Falling. It's coming out apparently this month. It may already be out. I'm not sure, but that's one that I'm looking forward to. Because I thought it was coming out last year, but I guess not. I don't really know. I don't really know to predict. Sort of. I don't really look at the release dates of some of these things, I should say. But a lot to look forward to in the new year. A lot to accomplish. A lot of books to read too. Man, I tell you, I'm trying to put a dent in my reading. I got some real good looking books that I'm looking at right now that I'm just eager to kind of dive into, but all in due time, Which, like I said before, you don't want to rush through anything. You don't want to, I should say, you want to cherish kind of what you're in. If you're, if you're driving somewhere or you're watching a film or you're reading a book, all you're thinking about is like, man, I just wish I was there already. I wish, man, I gotta get this film over with. I gotta, get this book over with and move on to the next one, move on to the next one, and really kind of devaluing these core experiences, whether it be something as simple as just driving maybe to the store and back, like, oh, I just got to get to the store, I got to go home, instead of the drive itself. Or if you're reading a book and you're like, you have the book in your hand and you're like, man, I'm almost done with it, I'm almost done, I'm just trying to get to the end of it, trying to get to the end. It's like, well, just savor the words, don't rush through it. Or a film, even if you like, you're like, man, I just want to get this film over with so I can say whether it was, it was it was this good or this bad or anything like that. Just being fully present and fully aware of our surroundings. Because, I mean, the older you get, it just feels like more and more time is moving faster. It felt like it was just Halloween and then Thanksgiving, Christmas, and now here we are in New Year's. And I always say that, man. It's sort of like we really gotta cherish every day, every moment, because we don't want to be waking up, in 10, 20 years and being like, oh, what happened? I don't know. I used to be, 10 years younger. Now I'm this. And it's just like, well, when you're looking forward to the end of the day, you're looking forward to the end of, this car trip. You're trying to get to the end of the work week or anything like that, or whatever it is. You're not realizing the in between of just the people that you've met along the way, or the experiences that you've taken for granted. How many times do we, we look back at something that we didn't even think of at the moment, and then we realize, like, man, that's actually a really good kind of core memory. Whether it's a simple drive you took with someone, or maybe it's just like a restaurant that you ate at. You were just like in a good mood that day, and you were with someone, or you were by yourself, and you just really enjoyed the experience. Something that in the moment you took for granted, of just like, oh, I'm driving, or I'm eating this delicious food, or anything like that. But then in retrospect, or you hear a song you hadn't heard in a couple of years, and it kind of brings you all back, or even in a while. How many times you listen to an old song and you somehow, maybe if you don't exactly remember the words, you remember, certain sort of influctuations, and in sort of, how the singer would say certain words, or how the guitar sounded, or anything like that. So, yeah, it's all about just being aware. That's what we want to do for the new year. That's what we always want to do, but for the new year especially, now that we're going to look at it, we don't want to be looking back when it comes to December 2026 and being like, man, it feels like it was just January. What happened? It's like, well, what did you do in the time that was given to you, man? Did you just sit around and talk about making your dreams come true, or did you actually try to make an effort to do so, I hope you all enjoyed if you listen to the top 10 physical media releases of 2025 episode. That's on YouTube and Spotify right now. If you listen to that, thank you. Or even listen to some of it. That was a lot of fun. Those guys are always fun to talk to. We had a couple of beers. We were joking around. A lot of films mentioned in there, so there's no shortage of recommendations in that episode. But that was a lot of fun to record. This was the first year that the recording actually went well in terms of the recording itself. I've had problems in the past. First year my microphone was messed up. The second year there was a copy. I don't even know if the second year is even up anymore. I think the copyright strike kind of took it down, but there was an issue with that. So knock on wood, this one is up. It does have a copyright claim against it, but it's still up online, so it should be on Spotify still. So one of the films I had mentioned in that talk was revisiting one of my favorite films from one of my favorite filmmakers. And I won't talk too much about it because I did talk about it there, but in case you didn't listen to it or you're not interested in that, I do want to mention, one of my favorite filmmakers, John Sayles. I've mentioned many times before on the show. I've talked about, I've talked about him probably more so than his films. But Baby It's You was one that I ended up revisiting because of the Fun City Editions Blu-ray, starring Rosanna Arquette and Vincent Spano. And boy, this was one that I watched kind of late at night. And I was like, man, I remember liking this, but I was almost kind of, I think I was maybe a little bit worried that it wasn't going to hold up as much of an impact as it had the first time on that, because, especially certain films that really kind of leave an impact on you, there's almost this kind of hesitation of going back to it. Even beginning of this episode, when I was talking about 28 years later, this is a it's a very mainstream film. I had a strong emotional reaction to that theatrically, and then I decided to rewatch it, and I had even more of a reaction on the second viewing. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes sometimes you're like, man, it's not hitting as hard, or sometimes it hits just right. And this time, Baby It's You hit just right. I like this even more in this viewing than the first time. It takes place in the late '60s. Over a period of time, we have these two characters, Jill, played by Rosanna Arquette, who's in high school. She's doing well for herself. She has friends. They're out there. She doesn't have a boyfriend. She can't do her thing. And we got this. I think he was a new guy, Chic, played by Vincent Spano. And Vincent Spano definitely feels like a product of the '50s more so than anything else, because he's definitely kind of a I don't even know if exactly kind of a greaser type, but he's definitely he's an Italian kid. He talks really he talks like that. He's definitely slick back hair, cool car, leather jacket, and it's their relationship and it's their ups and downs of a relationship because, for all intents and purposes, the first time that they actually meet, Sheik is coming on to her very strong. She's declining his advances. She's like, man, like, I don't, like, you're like a goofball. I'm good. I don't want anything to do with you. But Sheik's kind of is persistence, and sort of they're building this relationship in a way where even when things start to flutter and things start to decline, uh, it's this kind of mutual feeling that in a lot of ways, these characters need each other at some points more than others. Like Sheik at one point, seemingly doing better off for himself, and at another point, Jill is seemingly doing better off for herself. But it's just kind of pulling back and forth between both of them. Goes from high school to after high school, and sort of the dreams that they want to go to. Sort of like, well, one's talking about college, one wants to do this, and where that leads them. And I think the thing that I love about John Sayles' film so much, and especially with his writing too, which I think it's a big thing to talk about, is his character writing, is not just in this film, but in many of his films. But I guess for specific context, I'll mention in this film is that he allows us to view these characters and view their problems in a way where I think a contemporary film would almost be nervous to kind of have Sheik maybe go too far at times. He gets very angry. He's throwing stuff. He's going after her. He like basically kidnaps her at one point, and it's treated in a way that it's not writing it off as like, oh haha, it's all fun and games. Don't worry about it. She really actually wants him. It's a more complicated and nuanced relationship than that, where these characters, like I said, they need each other. It's sort of like this guy who has no idea what to do. He hasn't really felt this way about somebody, and Jill's sort of like leaning into it, maybe kind of like not necessarily leading him on, but sort of like, hey, I like you, but I'm also gonna kind of like keep you at a distance, and Sheik not really knowing what to do about that, and how the companionship above all else between these two, even maybe more so than the romance of it, is really what shines, man. Because which else is to say, Rosanna Arquette and Vincent Spano, just both great performances in this. Rosanna Arquette in the '80s, I mean, she had such a her face was just such a unique look where you see her, and I don't mean unique in a bad way. I mean, she's a beautiful actress, but it's one of these things where you see her and you're like, man, she looks so familiar. And Rosanna Arquette's been in a bunch of films. She was in like Desperately Seeking Susan, and of course like After Hours. She had a memorable role in that. But with this, I mean, she's great in the film. Like I said, her and Sheik are just so opposite. They have both different kinds of backgrounds. They have both different ideas of their lives, both different kinds of fashion sense as well. And I should also say that one of the things I want to mention as well, at least in terms of Rosanna Arquette, is that this was based on a story by Amy Robinson, who would go on to, or before this, I'm sorry, would go on to produce After Hours. And actually, I believe, yeah, I'm going to check this right now. I'm pretty sure that Griffin Dunn is a producer on this film as well. I thought I'd seen his name in the credits, unless I'm mixing up with another film, but see if I can find it here. I thought I just saw it. Yeah, Griffin Dunn was one of the producers on it. Griffin Dunn, of course, another great actor. Speaking of After Hours, it all comes back to After Hours. Anyways, my point is though is that with Baby It's You, what Sayles does, and I think a lot of filmmakers are a little afraid to do, is I think they're afraid to make a character you're supposed to root for be somewhat unlikable. And when I say somewhat unlikable, I don't mean he's like beating the crap out of her or anything like that, but he definitely goes, at times you're like, man, what is this guy doing? Is he trying to intentionally sabotage this relationship? But it never judges him, and it never makes us want to be like, oh man, isn't he just this poor soul? No, these are complicated, real people. And I think back to something, a very underrated John Sayles film, Leanna. And in that film, you have a woman who cheats on her husband with another woman. And the film is never saying she's in the right, but what it is doing is it's trying to come to some sort of understanding between these characters who have fallen out with each other. She has fallen out of with her husband, and it never tries to, a lesser film would be like, it would have this ridiculous thing where they would have it be, which is such a trope I see so often, where to try to justify a character doing something morally reprehensible, they'll make the other character like a jerk. They'll make them like, well, they were beating her up and they were mean to her, so it's okay that she did this. I think that's such a obviously course that happens. I'm saying in the context of a film, that's such a lousy cop out, and it's just so many films do that where it's like, man, are they really trying to make us side with this character? And then it's like, oh well, that other character who was they were married to, they were actually a jerk, and they were beating them up. I saw a film this year. I'm sorry, this year, last year in 2025 that tried to do that, where it's a character cheats on another character, and they're like, well, he was sad though, and it's okay. And it's like, boy, oh boy, that's tone deaf if I've ever seen it. But just so many films like that. I mean, even something like even a film I actually just recently watched, The Day Trippers. I like how in that film as well, a character cheats on another character, but they never say it's okay. But there's more nuance to that relationship where they go, okay, this isn't okay, but we got to see what these characters are. And I think John Sayles is just such a mature, just such a strong screenwriter and director, of course. I mean, it's funny, even outside of his character stuff, like, I think he's just a great writer in general. Wrote, one of my favorite Jaws ripoffs, Alligator, which is just such a fun film. I haven't seen all of his written films. I know there's a couple that I've seen, but one that I really like a lot, which I think is also very underrated, is Breaking In with Burt Reynolds from 1989. That's a very, very good film, which is funny. It actually feels like a John Sayles directed film, but that's directed by Bill Forsyth, who did like Local Hero and Gregory's Girl and Housekeeping. I've seen all those films. I didn't know he did Gregory's Two Girls. Wow? I didn't know he did that. But Breaking In is just one of my favorite John Sayles films, just period. But like I said, I love just how he writes his characters. I love where the film goes to, and even the soundtrack as well. It's interesting because this is a film set in the late '60s, and we have an almost all Bruce Springsteen soundtrack, which is a criticism that I have with a lot of films, is that they have music that's inappropriate for that setting. I remember watching Django Unchained which is a film I like a lot, but it's a film that for somebody like Tarantino, I think, who was so good at putting music to films and using, and reusing old scores or old, music pieces. That was the one time where I was like, man, I think he really missed the mark with the score on this. This feels really clumsy. And I don't mean a dog in that film. That's just an example that I think of because I do like that film a lot. And but this is a case where I think, for whatever reason, I think the Springsteen soundtrack just really fits for this. Some of his famous songs, "Hard to Be a Saint in the City," "East Street Shuffle," they all just really fit the scenes in a way where I think John Sayles said himself is like it's like sort of like the mood of the film that the songs match, and I happen to totally agree. I mean, me being a fan of Springsteen aside, it could be any artist because Springsteen obviously wasn't around in the late '60s. First album to come out until the the '70s, and then so on and so forth. But the point is that these songs match in a way where it really doesn't matter. Where you can, going back to Tarantino, you can have something like The Hateful Eight, which is a Western, takes place in the 1800s. Then you have a song from The Last House on the Left that fits perfectly for the scene. Sometimes the songs just work. Sometimes it doesn't need to be period specific. Now, obviously, if you're making a true story, maybe making a movie that's set in, the medieval ages, and you're playing Metallica, I might raise my eyebrows a bit, admittedly, but it all just works here. I love this film. This is the second viewing. Just, man, I Sayles' films are like wine. They just get better with age. I mean, I've rewatched Lone Star 2 years ago. It's weird saying last, and City of Hope, and I love those films. And Criterion are putting out Brother from Another Planet sometimes. I don't know when they will, but that's a really solid film as well. But anyways, I'm going to wrap it up here. Time's running out. So I just want to mention that there's so many opportunities. We got to take advantage of them. There's so many films to watch. There's just so much to do. But life is just so great, and we're going to take advantage of it. We're going to grab it by the, we got this, man. We got this by the ass. It's going to be the motto of the year. So you guys take care, and until next time.